a second. Just to let you know, I am recording this webinar. It will only be recording me, of course, not you. So it's just so we can add it to our YouTube channel for people who can't make it this evening. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Laura Stanley. I work at Ackland Burley in the sixth form. I'm the UCAS coordinator. I'm the Pathways and Progress leader focused on destinations. My role is around year 11 into year 12 transition, and then what our students do once they leave us at the end of year 13. Be that going on to university, apprenticeships, college, or any other destinations, any other places they might go. Today, of course, we are focused on university. We're specifically focused on Oxford and Cambridge universities. And the reason I'm doing this webinar, although it might seem quite early, is because we often get towards the sort of middle or even end of year 12, people suddenly say, oh, I didn't realize that the application process was a bit different, or I didn't realize that that there were other steps in applying to Oxbridge. And actually, just to take a second to tell you a bit of an anecdotal story, that happened to me when I was in sixth form, like obviously many years ago now. But I wanted to apply to Oxford, and I approached my tutor, and the application deadline had been and gone because no one told me that the application deadline was different. So I do have a kind of a little like a personal kind of dog in this race, in that it was something that I didn't get the opportunity to do, and I want to make sure that anyone going to who is based at Ackland Burley, or anyone who attends the swap, has the information to decide for themselves if this is the right pathway for them. So I'm just going to share my screen with you. There are some links and things in the slides here. This PowerPoint will be on the Ackland Burley website. I will have it put in the year 11 area and in the year 12 area. And if you want a copy of it, you can also drop me an email. I'll put my email in the chat towards the end of the presentation. At the end, if you've got any questions, please feel free to ask or to post them in the chat, whatever works best for you. Fantastic. So just to clarify, for people who aren't sure, we sometimes refer to these, we often refer to these courses or these universities as early entry courses and early entry universities. Early entry is any course at Oxford, any course at Cambridge, and any course where you're applying for medicine, dentistry, or veterinary science. And they're called early entry for the very obvious reason that they have an earlier entry deadline than all other universities and all other courses. So the entry deadline for Oxford, Cambridge, medicine, dentistry, veterinary courses, and that's medicine, dentistry, and veterinary at all other unis, is the 15th of October. So if you think that you start year 13 at the start of September, then the deadline is the 15th of October. So it's very early comparatively in year 13. However, the deadline for the other courses, any other course at any other uni, is usually the 26th of January the following year, so after Christmas of year 13. So it is a considerably earlier deadline. That means students who are wanting to apply for Oxford, Cambridge, and the other courses need to have their UCAS applications, their personal statements, their preparation done before other students do, which is, again, one of the reasons we want to talk about this early. A very brief summary then of what Oxbridge is actually like. Now, I'm probably talking to people here, I might be talking to people here who went to Oxford or Cambridge, and so can obviously share your experiences. But I am aware that a lot of our students don't have family members who've been, haven't had any contact or any experience of Oxford or Cambridge. And my recommendation there is to go if you possibly can. It's not a particularly long way out of London. It can, I know trains and things can be expensive, but it's not a particularly long way out of London. They do have plenty of open days and lots of opportunity for students to go and look around. It is really worth going, partly because they're both really beautiful and actually just a nice day out, but you get a sense there of what attending Oxford or Cambridge is like, and it is quite different to other universities. The main thing to bear in mind is that really hard academic work is expected all the time. And you might say that obviously hard work is expected at university. You might that might seem obvious, but Oxford and Cambridge both have a well-deserved reputation for having more work, more hours, like heavy schedules of tutorials, seminars, lectures, or labs, depending on the subject that you're studying, lots of small group or one-to-one tutorials every week. There is a lot of reading, a lot of work, and a lot of contact time, probably way more than that subject at another university, or it can easily be more than that subject at another university. Because of this, they have other rules around students doing things like paid work in term time. So that is something to bear in mind. And some of the other things that you may find quite unusual is it can be quite an insular community, where you're in your college and with your sort of course mates, and you spend all of your time with quite a close-knit small number of people. And this really depends on the college, but there can be lots of things done for you. Lots of the colleges are catered, which means that you all have dinner together. You will have a porter on site. And again, it varies college by college, but some of them have a real emphasis on tradition. So there will be certain, rules and directions around things like dinner and and things like that, which can be really unusual if you're not used to it. However, there are lots of modern colleges as well that don't have those kind of stipulations. So it's, again, part of your research should be looking into the different parts of the university. I'll talk a bit more about colleges later if you're not sure what I mean. However, there are so many benefits to going to Oxbridge. Oxbridge isn't the be all and end all. We are very lucky in the UK that we have hundreds of exceptional universities and world regarded universities. But Oxford and Cambridge, quite rightly, are usually in that top 3 each year when it comes to university rankings, sort of battling it out with St Andrews in Scotland. You do have access to really the best libraries and resources that you could hope for. They are incredibly well resourced. All the subjects are incredibly well resourced. You will meet people and sort of engage in exceptional networking that will last a lifetime. And the people who are teaching you, the lecturers, the academics, are some of the best in the world. So it is a unique experience, but there are lots and lots of positives to it for lots of people. It's not, and I will keep saying this, it's not for everyone. And it's not an experience that everybody wants or will enjoy. So one thing to bear in mind at the start of this process, if you're starting to think, is it for me? Is Oxbridge for me? Is that you can only apply to Oxford or Cambridge in any one given year. You cannot apply to both, and you can only apply for one course. So when you fill in your UCAS application, you get 5 choices on your UCAS application, 5 choices of courses, but only one of those can be Oxford or Cambridge, and you can only choose one subject. So, for example, you could apply for computer science at Cambridge, but then your other 4 choices can be computer science at Warwick or Durham or York, but they could not be another subject at Cambridge, and they could not be a subject at Oxford. So you have to decide which one, and you've got to be certain about the course that you're applying for, because you only get to apply to one. And that sort of leads naturally onto the question of what actually is the difference between them. I mean, we even squish their names together into one. We often talk about them in one breath, and that's for very, very good reason. They are very similar. They're similar in terms of reputation. As I say, they often have this sort of slight rivalry, and that they'll battle it out for who's going to be in top place or second place in the uni rankings each year. They have a very similar teaching style, like their systems and things are very similar. The actual unis themselves, there isn't much difference between them. So the key thing to have a look for, if you decide you want to apply, is at the courses themselves. Look at the course outlines. because that is the key difference. Very generally speaking, and this is very, very general, Cambridge courses are broader, especially in the first year. A lot of Cambridge courses have a more general first year, and then they specialize down in years 2 and 3, whereas Oxford starts off more specialized. But that is not the same across every course. It's just a generalization. So the things that you'll need to look at are the courses, the colleges, again, which I'll talk about later, the type of accommodation, and actually look at the city. Again, they're similar in lots of ways, but where would you rather live? It often comes down to that choice when people are deciding between Oxford and Cambridge. You're going to be there for 3 years. However, let's say the course content should be your primary focus. Sometimes it will decide for you because they don't offer exactly the same subjects. So if you want to do architecture, you have to go to Cambridge because Oxford don't do it. If you want to do art, you have to go to Oxford. So the first port of call should be to see which university offers the subject that you want to study, or the subjects that you're thinking about studying. And this is really important for anyone here who's maybe thinking about a STEM subject. It's really important with science. Oxford offers individual sciences, a separate degree, so biology, chemistry, physics, whereas at Cambridge, you study natural science. And this is more like triple science. So like imagine additional science at GCSE, but on a much bigger scale. You choose 3 science modules and a maths module in year 1, and then you specialize. So for example, you can start off doing natural sciences and then decide that you want to do maths or computer science, or you can specialize in one of the science threads. So if you're a STEM student, that is a really important distinction between the 2 universities. It's really important that you've done that research so you know what you're applying for and why. Just links there. There are some links to the undergrad courses and the structure, and some information there from Oxford about choosing your course. So you've decided that you want to go. You're not sure which one yet, but you want to go. You're starting to make short lists of subjects, maybe history, maybe law, maybe HPSS, HSPS, sorry. And now it's entry requirements. What do you need to get in? So unsurprisingly, the entry requirements are very high, and these are minimum requirements. It is worth bearing in mind. A lot of students applying will have higher grades than this. So unfortunately, if your grades, your predicted grades for UCAS, if they are below this, then we will recommend, we will actually, a lot of time you will say you should not be applying, simply because you will not get past the first stage, and you're wasting a choice on your UCAS, and you're wasting a lot of time and effort. Doing an application for Oxford and Cambridge isn't easy. It's time consuming, and if they're going to just say no because your predicted grades are 3Bs, then there's no point. Now, your predicted grades for UCAS are made up, it's a holistic grade that's made up of all the work that you do across year 12 and the beginning of year 13. So it's not that there's one exam, and if you're normally working at an A, you get a B for this exam. It's not like, oh no, we're going to put them down as a B now. It is a holistic grade, and I work as UCAS coordinator with subject teachers to make sure that we have aspirational but accurate predicted grades to go on the UCAS form, and that we're advising students correctly. Really importantly is that Oxbridge are increasingly prescriptive about the A levels that they will accept. So, they're not flexible. So if you want to do maths at Cambridge, to read maths at Cambridge, you have to have done further maths A level, and they will not budge on that. So please check. If you are in year 11 now, and you're making short lists of subjects, check and see which A levels you'll need. If you're in year 12 now, have a look and make sure that you're doing the right things for that degree at that uni. Oh, can we just mute, please? Thank you very much. So just check that out. Again, if you apply without having the appropriate subjects, you just won't get past the first barrier. So they won't even consider your application. So there is no point. Now, Oxbridge do accept BTECs for some courses. It is a bit of a myth that they don't accept BTECs. They do for some courses, not all, but generally they want distinction star, and they will only accept BTECs with an A level alongside it. And again, they're very prescriptive about the A level that it has to be. So have, especially if you're in year 11, of course, you're thinking about, you're not sure A level BTEC, you're not sure, then it's not that you can't go to Oxford or Cambridge with a BTEC, but you have to be very careful about the other things that you choose to go alongside it. Now, interestingly, and when I did the medicine version of this a few weeks ago, I talked quite a bit about GCSE requirements, because lots of medical schools now have really specific GCSE requirements. Oxbridge actually don't, but so they don't have any. They don't say you must have 8s or 9s or whatever, but they will expect at least a 6 in maths and English. So again, if you're in year 11, make sure that you are going to be getting a 6 in maths and English. If you're in year 12 and you don't have a 6 in one of those subjects, but you are really aspiring to apply to Oxbridge, you will need to talk to someone about resitting in the summer to make sure that you get that grade 6. Talk to me, in fact. Just a list there of, if you want to have a look at all the entry requirements for the different colleges and different subjects at Oxford and Cambridge. They're in, like, the Oxford one in particular is in a very nice, neat table. So you want to go, you're getting A and A star grades, you're shortlisting your subjects. What do you need to actually do? What does the application look like? So you have to complete a UCAS application form. It's exactly the same UCAS application form as for any other course in university. You just have to do it earlier, as we've already talked about. You will nearly always have to sit a pre-interview assessment. Not all, but lots of Oxbridge subjects and colleges have pre-assessments, pre-exams, basically, for their subjects. You can do those at school, and they're free. But again, this is why you need to know and decide fairly early that you're going to make an Oxbridge application, so you can start to do revision and practice for this at least over the summer of year 12. You will need to attend an interview. Now, interviews traditionally take place at the uni. You often go and you stay. Sometimes you stay at the uni overnight. Sometimes you stay for a day. But they have been remote for the past few years due to COVID. And this year, they haven't confirmed yet whether it's going to be in person, remote, or a combination of the two. So by next year, we hope it will be back to being in person, because that is a better experience in a lot of ways for you as an interviewer. You get to go and you get to see people face to face and actually see the uni and stuff. And finally, some courses ask for an example of your written work. These are usually arts and humanities courses. History, for example, always asks for written work samples. This isn't something that you write especially for Oxford or Cambridge. They ask you for a piece of work that you've already done. So that can be an essay in class, it could be a piece of NEA coursework, it can be anything. And you send it off to them when they request it. They don't assess it, they don't mark it, but they read it to get a sense of your style. And they sometimes use it in your interview. So they might use it as like a prompt material in your interview to ask you some more about what you wrote and why. So for most, just to compare this, for most universities, the only thing you need to do is to complete a UCAS form. UCAS form, application, personal statement, and off it goes. For Oxbridge, there are these usually 2, sometimes 3 extra steps. So it varies in which subjects need a pre-assessment. If you're applying for law, you need to sit something called an LNAT. Again, in medicine, the applicants need to sit something called a BMAT, which are external assessments. And there are lots of revision materials available online. So again, if you're in year 11, that's not something to worry about at the minute. Even if you're in year 12, you don't need to start preparing for this now. It's just knowing that you have these extra strands to do. The interviews really vary. You could expect a panel interview. You sometimes get prompt material. And again, we also help. We set up mock interviews for all of our students who make Oxbridge applications. So we make sure that everyone has at least one round of mock interview. So they're never going in not knowing what what they're going to get. What do they expect from you then? They expect you as an applicant to have obviously these high grades. They expect you to have the correct subjects, so the right subjects for with the right and with you to meet the entry requirements. They also expect you to be really engaged with this subject. So they expect you to be someone who engages in this subject outside of the classroom. So they expect you to be someone who doesn't just go to school, do their lessons, go home, do the basic bare minimum of homework, and then whatever. They want to see someone who is a really, really academic. And partly because they want the absolute best students, but secondly, because their courses are so rigorous, if you are not someone who is able to, work independently, research on your own, if you're not someone who's engaged enough to work outside the classroom, you're not going to be someone who's right for Oxbridge. So again, it's something to decide for yourself. Is that something you want? Is that the experience you want from university? It might not be. But if it is, then it's something to start thinking about now. Again, if you're in year 11, once you start narrowing down these subjects, then that kind of reading can come, and that kind of reading and engagement you can't do too much of that or too early. And if you're in year 12, you should be doing this now. You should be looking outside of the classroom to see what you can do. Ask your teachers for reading lists, ask them for books that they recommend, ask them for documentaries or podcasts or other things. They will be more than happy to recommend things to you. I'm going to talk about the aspirational team in a second, but in the Families Bulletin, we often put things in that are workshops or sort of experiences, or even things like lectures on interesting subjects. That is what they will want you to show that you're engaged with and interested in. Also, you'll need to research the course to talk about an interview, but at this stage, that comes later. They don't expect you to rock up at an interview, knowing exactly what to say. They don't expect you to rock up at an interview being perfect. They know that you're an A-level or BTEC student. They're not expecting you to talk like an undergraduate. They're just expecting to see that potential. And the other thing that they don't expect, which again can be some people get the wrong idea about, is they don't expect you to be like grade 8 trumpet and a world champion skateboarder and have been on Great British Bake Off. They're not particularly bothered about you having loads of extracurricular activities. Because fundamentally, your skateboarding ability doesn't cross over into your ability to read history. What they want is our students who are really interested in their subjects and are really academic and are good at the subject. Extracurricular doesn't hurt because it shows that you are a rounded individual, and there are loads of extracurricular things that demonstrate different skills that are really helpful at uni. But don't be worried about thinking that you have to spend the time between now and your application like packing in loads and loads of voluntary work or finding new hobbies, because that's not what they want from you. They want you to be very good at the subject that you want to do with them. Just a quick word on the college system, just because I've mentioned it. This is a bit more info than you need at this stage. But just in case you're not aware, when you apply to Oxford or Cambridge, you don't apply just to Oxford or to Cambridge. You apply to a particular college within Oxford or Cambridge. And that college process your application. There are some differences between the colleges. As I said at the beginning, they're mainly split into like older, more traditional ones and modern, newer ones. And that's just a personal preference as to which one you like. The course content's the same. Whichever course you go to, you study the same course. You've got the same lecturers, you do the same exams. It's just the college is just sort of where you live. It's a bit like your base school at the swap. So there are, that's some research that you'll do later down the line. Sorry, if you're not muted, could you just mute your mic for me, please? Thank you. That's some research to do later down the line. But You can also make an open application if you're not bothered, and then they'll assign you to a college randomly. So if you really don't care which college you go to, that's another option. There is loads of chat online, and you get loads of kind of anecdotal and apocryphal chat about, can you pick a college that's easier to get into? Because some colleges are more popular than others. So the famous colleges, like like sort of Christchurch or Jesus College and King's College, are often, well, do have every year more applicants than the lesser known colleges, partly just because people have heard of them. So they get more people applying to them. Now, they do have a system in place to stop that happening, where students who are really strong applicants to a college that ends up being hugely oversubscribed get passed on to the other colleges who are less oversubscribed. So if you are an amazing student and you apply to a really popular college, then you might not get into that college, but you might very well still get into the uni. They will just offer you a different college. So that is, these are things that are worth thinking about. It's just something to be aware of, that they have this college system, because you'll see it come up as you start to research. If you are a Oxbridge applicant, we do loads of stuff in the summer term of year 12 on the college system, where we look at different colleges and we look at the benefits and downsides of different colleges, and we look at like admissions statistics and all that kind of stuff, which I'm not going to go into today because it's too much of a deep dive. But we do help you to choose if you want help choosing, or we leave it up to you to make your own mind up. We don't push you one way or another, but it is something to be aware of. When you come to research the colleges, then you'll want to look at things like, is it self-catered, or is there food, basic stuff like that. Do you want to make your own dinners, or do you want someone to make your dinner for you? How much does it cost? They're slightly different in terms of cost, but not much, to be honest. They are pretty much the same. Do you want to live in a big college or a small one? And how much accommodation is available? Is it en suite? Word of warning: lots of sorry. If you're not muted, could you mute yourself, please? Thank you. Word of warning: lots of Oxbridge colleges are very old, and they're in very old buildings. Please do not expect fancy, shiny, brand new accommodation with massive ensuite bathrooms and stuff, because you will be disappointed in a lot of cases. You will often live in a very old or beautiful building, but it's not always the most up to date. Now, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, this all sounds brilliant, but I'm not going to get 3 A stars, I'd love to go, but that's just not going to happen for me, then there is another. Oxford and Cambridge do offer something called foundation courses. These are like foundation courses at other unis, where instead of doing a 3-year undergraduate, you do a 4-year undergraduate. So you do like a year 0 at the beginning, and then once you pass that year, you can either go straight into a degree of your choice at Oxford or Cambridge, or you can apply and go to uni somewhere else if you decide that you don't like it there. So you can take that foundation year qualification and take it somewhere else. And Oxford and Cambridge do both offer this. They are accessible to students with slightly lower grades, not low grades. It's sort of BBB would be the absolute minimum. Sort of ABB is probably more realistic in terms of how accessible it is. But the one way in which Oxford and Cambridge foundation year courses differ to most unis is, most unis, you have to take out a loan for that year, and you have to pay tuition fees and all the kind of stuff, just like you would for the other 3 years of the course. At Oxbridge, you don't. The foundation year is free, and they also give every foundation year student a scholarship bursary to live on, which covers a lot of your accommodation. It often covers your food and things like that. So they are really good options. They are only available if you are sort of achieving those slightly lower grades, and they have extremely strict application criteria. There are only 50 places, so 50 places available at each, 50 at Oxford, 50 at Cambridge. And the application criteria is extremely strict. You have to live in certain postcode areas. Your household income has to be below a certain amount per year. You have to have been eligible for free school meals or currently be eligible for bursary. You have to be the first person in your family to have gone to university. So although they are fantastic, but they are only available they're not available to everyone. So it is something to look into, but please check the criteria really carefully. If you're in year 12 and you're thinking that one of these is really likely for you, and you want a hand looking at the criteria, do ask me, because it can get a little bit confusing in terms of what they're actually asking for. And the final thing I think I want to really talk about today is summer schools and mentoring. Again, particularly important to year 12s, but also year 11s, because there are a number of summer schools available between year 11 and year 12 that are really, really good. Now, they're called summer schools because they are in the summer, but they don't take the whole summer. Don't worry, they're usually about 3 days. And I really, really recommend them. I really recommend that anyone thinking of applying to Oxbridge applies for at least one summer school with them. There are specific ones, such as the Cambridge Sixth Form Law Conference. This is for current year 12 students. It's in March of next year. Applications close in December. It is, I think, 4 days. You live in the uni, you get all your food. It's run by the undergrads. They take you around the city. You get to see some amazing stuff. This one it's £150, but there are free places available as well. The other ones, the Oxford 4EE and the Cambridge Sutton Trust Summer School, are completely free. Again, you go and live at the uni with other students. You take part in lectures, workshops. You meet undergrads, you meet lecturers, and you get a real feel of what it's like to live there and to study there. And that's why they are so, so good. There are a few alternative things as well. There's something that comes up in summer of year 12 called Lumina, which is actually at Harrow School in West London, which is, again, a Oxford and Cambridge kind of prep few days where you go and do the same sort of preparation and work with other applicants, but you stay in London rather than going out to Oxford or Cambridge. And there's also this brilliant thing called the Oxbridge Launchpad, which is a mentoring scheme which links you up with current undergrads in a subject area of your choice, and they help you with things like your personal statement, and they help you with things like what it's like to go to Oxford or Cambridge, and they help you with your interview and stuff like that. It's really good. The other good thing about Oxbridge Launchpad is everyone involved is from a state school. So all the volunteers, all the students who work for Launchpad are students who came from comprehensive schools, just like you. They are not students from private schools. So because that can be a bit intimidating, I think, for people as well around Oxbridge. Like, oh, is everybody going to be really posh? Like, lots of people are really posh, but not everyone. There are also things like webinars and workshops through the year. The best way to learn about these is to keep looking at the family bulletin, because I put them in the family bulletin each week. And I have also this week started an aspirational team, a year 12 team run obviously through Teams. I will add a very small number of students to this sort of automatically to kind of get it going. But if anybody wants to be a member of that team, just drop me an email. I will add you in. That will be where I'll put all these things in as they come up: opportunities, workshops, interesting bits of work experience, all different, not just Oxford stuff and Cambridge stuff, all different kinds of stuff, medicine stuff. And later on in the year, we will use that to run our webinars and our prep sessions for applications as well. One thing to be aware of, again, this is not quite so relevant. I would say it's not quite so relevant for year 11s, but it might be actually. Be aware of summer schools, or sometimes called prep programs, that have Oxford or Cambridge in the title, but when you click through to them, it costs like £3,000 for a week. These are often nothing to do with Oxford or Cambridge. First of all, they're in Oxford or Cambridge, but they're often nothing to do with the actual unis. Or in some cases they are, but they are aimed at international students with lots and lots of money. They are not aimed at home UK students. Genuine affiliated summer schools or prep programs with Oxford and Cambridge that are designed for UK home students are free. Or they might have a smaller cost associated. So like the Cambridge Law Conference, it might be, £150 for 4 days, I think it is. It might even be 5 days. It's not going to be like £2,500 for, 3, 4, 5 days. And they often come up at the top of Google as well because they pay for them. So they will often say ad next to them and they'll be at the top of your search engine. You've got to go scrabbling around to find the real ones. So again, if you come up across anything and you think it looks good, but you're not sure if it's legit or whatever, drop it to me on an email. I'll have a look for you. Or anything I put in the family bulletin or in the aspirational team will have been vetted by me. So I will have checked it's actually, good, worthwhile. So what should you do now? If you're at the end of this and you're thinking, oh God, that sounds like loads of hard work, but it sounds great. I really want to do this. If you're in year 11, the most important thing is to focus on your GCSEs. It really is. Focus on your GCSEs because the better grades you get at GCSE, the more choice you have at A level and BTEC, and the more choice you have at A level and BTEC, the more choice you have at university. Those grades will unlock these next stages. So they are really, really key. It can be interesting, though, to start making short lists of courses and doing a little bit of research. Some people find that, as they get bogged down towards the end of year 11 and you get sick of doing revision, that actually looking at what can this help me to get to can sort of invigorate you a little bit. Something you can start doing now, you should start doing now, is, as I said, to read around your subject, listen to podcasts, watch lectures, stay interested, stay engaged, talk to your teachers, cultivate. It sounds really cheesy, but really cultivate a love of your subject. If you're thinking of studying English literature at Oxbridge, but you can't be bothered to pick up a book and read it, then you're probably not going to do very well studying English literature. So that will also let you know, inform you if you're making the right choice about uni and about courses. And then when you get to the start of year 12 or when you get your results in year 11, reassess. Reassess, is this something I really want to do? When you have your pathways interview, because everyone in year 11 will have a pathways interview in kind of February, March next year, if you say to your interviewer that you are interested in Oxford or Cambridge, then either they will refer you on to me and we can have a chat, or they might be able to just check some things for you as well to make sure that you are choosing the right A levels. For example, that thing about further maths and Cambridge. If you're in year 12, then the best thing you can do is sign up to those summer schools, sign up to emails from Oxbridge, sign up to Oxford Launchpad, sign up to Sutton Trust, make sure that you've got that you're signed up, so when they open, you get an email saying apply for this now, because they aren't open for long and they get a lot of applicants. And make sure you're working towards those A&A star grades. Talk to your teachers about your grades, talk to them about Oxbridge. Don't get to a point where it's March and you don't think you can make it to an A and you're struggling and you're worried. Talk to them in advance. Start a supercurricular portfolio to make a note of those supercurricular things you're doing. Make a note of those lectures you watch, make a note of those books that you've read, make a note of that podcast that you've listened to, because when you write your personal statements in the summer of year 12, or when you go to your interview in autumn year 13, if you can look back and see that, then it will help you. And of course, request to join the aspirational team so you can stay on top of all this stuff. And you can also use that team to message me if you want to, or you want to ask me anything, or you want to go through anything with me. I will be available via that team. Okay. Thank you very much. So there's a couple of questions in the chat. If anyone else has got any more questions, if you just pop them in the chat now, I'm just going to have a drink and then I'll be back with you in a second. Lovely. So the first thing I've done is I've just put my email in the chat. So lstanley@acklandburley.camden.sch.uk. Same format as all the Ackland Burley staff emails. If you have any particular questions, if you have any specific questions about if you're a student, about your courses or choices, or if you're a parent, about your children, then you drop me a message. I'm more than happy to answer the questions. Let me have a look here. So email, is summer school available in every university? It's not, no. Only certain unis offer summer schools. Not all of them do. You can check on their website. If you go to the university website, you go to widening participation, then you can usually see there where the summer schools are. I put out a brochure of summer schools in sort of end of January. So I usually do like end of January, beginning of February. So most of them start to open around March time. I put out just a little PDF brochure, which I send out with a family bulletin that's just got lists of the different kinds of summer schools, and it's not exhaustive. It doesn't have all of them. If you look at the Sutton Trust as well, the Sutton Trust is a charity, an educational charity, and they actually work in association with lots of universities on summer schools. So they work with Cambridge to deliver their summer school, for example. I think they work with Warwick to do theirs. They definitely work with Durham. So lots of sort of well-regarded universities, and you can get, if you sign up for their alerts or their emails, you'll get a lot of info from one place. In terms of the aspirational team, yes, if you're in year 11, there's nothing to stop a student in year 11 joining, but everything I'm talking about is going to be for this year. So it's not going to be hugely relevant to them. But if they wanted to join, they could have a look at the kind of things that other students in year 12 were seeing. It is up to them, but just for them to recognize that they won't be able to apply to nearly everything because things will be aimed at year 12 students. Application deadlines. So yes, so for veterinary medicine, so veterinary science, medicine, dentistry, and all courses at Oxford and Cambridge, the deadline is 15th of October 2023. That is correct. And for all the other courses, so for every other uni, it would be the 25th of January 2024. God, that sounds like so far in the future, and it's really not. Okay. How many SWAT pupils have gone to Oxbridge, and do I have any feedback from them? I actually don't have that statistic. Across the 4 schools, I don't know. I don't know how many people have gone to Oxbridge. We send students to Oxbridge every year, but I don't actually have the numbers of how many, not even for last year across the whole consortium. We often stay in touch with our students who go to Oxbridge. One of our students, Eva, went a few years ago to read English, sort of came back and did some work with our sixth formers. We do try to keep in touch with them. Izzy as well, who went to do HSPS a couple of years ago, stayed in touch. But they don't always stay in touch. You know, they've sort of gone on to do different things. But I'm afraid I don't know. But we do, as I say, we do have people who apply and people who get offers every year. What written work do you need to show in interviews if you do sciences? You usually don't. It's generally only humanities and art and humanities really who ask for written work, because they tend to ask for essays. I've never seen a request for a written work for a science subject, so that's probably won't get that. Okay. How do UCAS points work? Just a very, very quick primer on UCAS points. Each grade, so each A level is worth UCAS points, and each grade is worth a fixed number of UCAS points. So for example, an A star grade is worth 56 UCAS points. A B grade is worth 40 UCAS points. Universities will either say, we want 3 Bs, or they will say, they will sometimes say we want 120 points. That's not always the same thing, because sometimes they say 120 points and that means you could get like an A star and 2 Cs. Sometimes they definitely want 3 Bs, so they will specify that. But that is how UCAS points work. It's the same with BTECs. So a double distinction star is worth I think it's something like 128 points, something like that, like the same as 2 A stars. But they all sort of add together. And there is a website. In fact, I'll pop it in the chat. There's a UCAS tariff website, which tariff calculator, which I use all the time because I am not a mathematician. Just to pop that in there. Oh, sorry, I've sent that as a direct message to someone. I'll send it to everybody. And what you do there is you select the subject that you're doing. So, sorry, you select the course you're doing. So A level, for example, and then you select the grade, and it tells you the UCAS points, and it helpfully adds them up for you at the bottom. It is really helpful. I use it all the time. Limited UCAS applications. I've talked about limited UCAS applications to unis. Does this apply to studying abroad? No. UCAS allows you to apply for 5 courses in the UK. If you apply for courses outside of the United Kingdom, they are separate and they do not count towards your 5. So you could apply for 5 courses. I wouldn't recommend it because it would be extremely stressful and hard, but you could apply for your 5 courses in the UK. You could apply for courses in Europe. You could apply for courses in America. They do not affect your total. Will subject teachers suggest to a student if they think they should apply? Often, yes. Or they will suggest to a student that they might want to look at Russell Group universities. Russell Group is the collective name for the top research universities in the country. So it includes Oxford and Cambridge, and it also includes really famous unis like Edinburgh, Warwick, Durham, York, places like that. And they're often considered to be the best unis in the country. That's not strictly true, but it's a decent shorthand. But yes, subject teachers will often say, we think you should consider applying for Oxford, Cambridge, or Russell Group. But on the other hand, they will also be led by the student. As I said at the beginning, Oxford and Cambridge isn't for everyone. It's not something that everybody would want to do. So we would hope that a student would do a bit of research themselves and express interest themselves if that's something that they wanted. But where a student is extremely strong in a subject, a teacher will often make that suggestion to them. Let's get more questions about veterinary. Is the BMAT needed for veterinary medicine? It's not. So there are two different assessments for medicine. There's something called a UCAT and something called a BMAT. You need different ones for different unis. So you need to check the university that you're applying to. Some veterinary science courses ask for a UCAT, but you do need to check. And you can apply for up to, well, sorry, to clarify, you can apply for up to 5 courses. So you could actually apply for 5 courses at the same uni, if that makes sense. Or you can apply for 5 courses at 5 different universities, but you only get 5 slots. So it has to be 5 slots. Okay. So students who are retaking year 12, does it affect them going into Oxford or Cambridge? Does it affect their UCAS points? It absolutely does not affect your UCAS points. Your A level or your BTEC is your A level and your BTEC. It doesn't matter. In my experience, they don't ask you to declare on your UCAS form that you've retaken the year. Now, obviously, if they look at the dates, they might be able to work it out if they're that bothered, and they might do it at Oxford and Cambridge. They might ask you about it in an interview, like why did you have to they might ask why you had to retake the year. As long as you're prepared to answer and explain it properly and fairly, then no, in my experience, it wouldn't or shouldn't affect you going on to university. They certainly don't have any written policy that says that you can't resit a year of your A levels. Sometimes people choose the wrong things at the start of year 12. They realize that's a mature and sensible decision to then go and do the right things. So you shouldn't be penalized for that.